Hi, my name is Tanya, and this is going to be my presentation for my MYP project. So for my project, I taught my 16-year-old monolingual friend to speak and comprehend some basic Spanish because I want to be a Spanish teacher and she wants to learn another language, so it's not just English. And then we judged our results by seeing if she could order food in Spanish, if she could maintain a short and simple conversation in Spanish, and then if she knew introductory words like shapes, colors, and how to deal with money. And then our actual product was a 3-minute video of Kara and I speaking Spanish to each other, and then like her translating back and forth between Spanish and English. Some learning experiences I had was that like making my lesson plans was not as easy as I thought it would be, and I didn't always know whether it should be like a PowerPoint or what way I should present the information to her for her to comprehend it in the best way possible. And then I also thought that since she's like a smart student, that it'd be easier for her. But turns out, like, regardless, just because you're older, it's still harder to learn a new language. It's always easier when you're younger. And then, especially with her pronunciation, practice makes perfect, because at first it still is kind of hard for her to roll her R's and things like that, but it definitely got better as she practiced her pronunciation. And then for the four stages, for investigating, I looked up ways to help people learn new languages. So I watched like some TED Talks, read some articles on TED, and then read other articles from like professors and teachers who are language teachers or professors. And then for planning, I made my PowerPoints or my lesson plans. And then sometimes I tried making like note takers for her, but they didn't always work out. So sometimes she just took notes on her own. And then for taking actions, I gave a few classes / lessons to her during winter break. I believe we did 4 or 6, and they were like around like 45 minutes to 1 hour. And then reflecting, we reflected together. So we just discussed what went well and what could have been better. Like she told me like things I could have done to like taught her better, and I like told her things that she could have done to have like learned better. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Hi. My name is Mohammed. My personal project is about an expensive fish species, because it's a lot of fish species in America is very expensive, and the lot of journal by the fish species, but is expensive. Then I build a expensive fish farm, and it's a expensive fish species such as a lionfish, it's a golden fish, and then the all people buy the fish species for all countries, and the fish species is very down in all country. Lot of people kill the fish species and eat, and the scientists said in the 2030 it's a fish species were not found in the 2030, because a lot of people killing the fishes and sell the in a different country and makes more money. So my project is protecting the fish species and send to the organization, so then the protect for the fish species. Thank you.
My Piano Journey by Nia Young. The goal of my MYP project was to learn how to play piano. I wanted to measure this by learning how to play Johannes Brahms' Lullaby by using the correct tempo and proper dynamics indicated on the sheet music. Investigating. The global context that I chose to use for this MYP project was personal and cultural expression. Music is one of the elements of culture, and music helps us connect with people from the past and people from all around the world. We are able to listen to music that came out 50 years ago, and we're able to listen to music that comes from many different continents of many different cultures. My prior learning to this project was that I already knew how to read sheet music. I also already knew how to use dynamics, and I knew basic music theory. The reason for this was through my middle school experience, and my choir teacher taught us all of these important things. But for this MYP project, to learn how to actually play piano, I had a lovely piano teacher, her name is Cindy Baines, and a few piano books that she let me use for this project. Planning. When forming my criteria, I kept in mind the different elements of a good piece and its pianist. These elements include proper dynamics, stylistic choices that the composer wants to make or that the musician makes, also tempo, and actually using the correct notes. To reach my goal of learning how to play piano, my parents, my piano teacher, and I all decided that we would have practices every Friday at 6 p.m. for 1 hour. In addition to this, I did 10 minutes of practice a day. My supervisor was a huge help in this process because at the beginning, I was feeling really overwhelmed because of how much work I would have to do and because I already had so many things going on. But Mr. Swigart reassured me that I would be okay as long as I time managed and I was actually interested in what I was doing. Taking action. Before I could actually learn how to play lullaby, I had to learn some easier songs. These songs included Swan Lake, Ode to Joy, and Twinkle Twinkle. I'm a dominantly right-handed person, and so I knew that my left hand would be an issue, but by the first practice I noticed that my left hand was really shaky and I couldn't really move it at all because I never used my left hand, and so I was able to work through that huge weakness by practicing my left hand every single day and by working on my left hand more than my right hand so that then they could almost be equal. Sometimes for my daily practice sessions, I would kind of experiment with the chords on the piano and just some notes and just messing around. And I actually found myself playing I Don't Want to Be You Anymore by Billie Eilish, and I completely figured it out by myself. I didn't look it up or anything like that. And then the next practice with my piano teacher, I played it for her and she loved it. This was my final outcome of Lullaby. Reflect. If I had to give myself a letter grade, I would probably give myself a B. The reason for this is because I kept the tempo, I played the correct notes, but I didn't really use the correct dynamics that were used on the sheet music. On the sheet music, it says to crescendo and diminuendo, and that refers to the volume of your piano playing. And throughout the piece, I pretty much stayed stagnant and I wasn't really varying in volume. This whole process has taught me to be more balanced. At the time of doing my MYP project, I had to juggle playing a sport, being in school, having family time, and then having to do my piano practices. So I really showed myself that as long as I time manage, I can live a more balanced life. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shana Munoz, and my project is Skate to Escape.
1 a.m., eyes closed, I'm slowly falling to the music and the atmosphere.
So why skating, you ask? I want a new hobby, something new, since everything else in life seemed bland. Now, I've always thought about it, but just recently I decided to make it a reality. You may think becoming a pro is easy, but in all actuality, with this limited time, I just wanted to prioritize writing and proper position. With this goal in hand, I was ready to try and balance my responsibilities with this new hobby on a day-to-day basis. The first step was researching a board. How exactly was I supposed to accomplish this? To be honest with you, it was quite overwhelming at the start, but I decided to take it one step at a time. And researching a board took a lot more time than I thought. So in the meantime, I decided to research videos on proper stance as well as some beginner tricks. And lastly, I made myself a set of criteria. 1, I wanted to have proper stance. I didn't want to look flimsy or look like a poser. 2, I wanted to ride for at least half a mile without falling over or having to stop or anything like that. 3, I wanted to skate in different areas. I didn't want to be restricted to my neighborhood or my garage or my backyard. I wanted to explore places. And 4, I didn't want to spend more than $50 on repairs, since that's a lot of money. And with those 4 criteria points, that's all I needed to create the best product I could. Alright, now the real action begins. Firstly, I bought a board. I bought a 7.5 primitive skating deck off of Zoomies.com for $100. It was a complete build, meaning I didn't need to buy the wheels or the deck or anything separately. It all came together. Secondly, I didn't buy any safety equipment because I didn't think I would be doing any crazy tricks or anything that I could get hurt with. And thirdly, I bought a planner to help me schedule my priorities. And I still use this today. It's very cool. Now, unfortunately, as I was trying to start my skating journey, I ended up spraining my ankle. And normally you'd give up this path and choose something else. However, something didn't let me. Instead, I surrounded myself with good friends, a skating partner, and even read some motivational articles to keep me going. And after my recovery, I tried some small tricks, tried riding around, and tried doing the best I could. And honestly, I enjoyed the progress, even if it was small. I overcame the fear of trying to ride again, and honestly, I laughed at my failures. I loved it. We're nearing the end. Obviously, my product wasn't the best it could have been due to my injury. However, I'm still proud of myself for pursuing the passion. And in terms of my criteria, I did pretty well. Through skating, I've learned to express myself more freely and my mental health has greatly improved. It's nice to reflect on how far I've come despite everything that's happened and everything I've been through. Overall, I'd say mission Skate to Escape was successful. Before I go, I'd like to encourage the wearing of safety equipment. Obviously, I regretted it by spraining my ankle, and you don't want to be like me, so wear your elbow pads, knee pads, helmets, everything. Be safe out there. Next, I recommend having a skating partner. Having a companion is a great way to get motivation, you guys can learn together, and it's a lot of fun. Lastly, go to skate parks. There's no need to be scared, the skating community is very nice. And if someone does judge you, you're doing your best, and that's all that matters. So yeah, I hope you enjoy skating, you should go try, and yeah, I'll see you later.
Hi, my name is Angelina McGilvray, and I chose to do art and painting for my MYP project. And what I faced during this project was not knowing what I was working with, honestly. And me facing that kind of scared me with what I was gonna do with it. And I chose it because I want to be an artist or an animator when I am able to go into that field after I graduate from high school and graduate from college. And it takes a lot of practice and it takes diving into different types of art projects to go into it. And I basically faced every type of challenge with not knowing what I was working with and me going through what would be the best to use with it and what to do with how I used the paints and how I never used it before and was thrown into something totally different. But it was a fun experience. I had to be being a risk taker and not knowing what I was doing all the way through and through. And I just, it opened my eyes to what other painters have to go through, and I respect them more every day because of what I did and what they go through more than I did. So what I would say after learning from this particular experience is to enjoy the fact that every other person is putting out what they enjoy, and everyone is their own personal critic, and that they don't know what to expect, and everything is different than what they wanted. They ended up wanting this, but it ended up doing something different, and it always ends up being amazing. And everyone would say this is beautiful and it's perfect, while the person that created it is thinking, I could have done something different, it could have been better. And I took that into consideration, and I still think that I could have done better. And yeah, I hope that you can understand that doing something like this or going into like sports or something like that could be taking a risk and doing things that are out of your comfort zone or are out of your experience level is taking a risk, and you're putting yourself out there and you're doing something that you enjoy. And I learned that very, very well. So I hope that you learn that too. Thank you for seeing.
Hello, my name is Eileen, and today I'm going to be doing my project on immigrant struggles. My goal was to educate people about immigrant struggles and to see what they have to pass through on coming into a new country. There are 4 stages to this project that I'm going to be talking about. The first was investigating. The second is the planning. The third is the taking action. And the fourth is reflecting. For the first part, I was able to research more topics about what they have to struggle through on coming into a new country, and I was able to find sources such as videos and interviews that they did. For the planning, I was able to do a timeline that helped me a lot with this by setting dates and times of when I wanted to start things and finish them. The taking action was when I started to do my website and started to put all the things I wanted to put, and I also did them in English and Spanish for everybody to be able to read them. In my last stage, I was able to reflect my overall process to see what I did and to see if it was going to help people. What I learned in the process was a lot. I learned that immigrants struggle a lot through what they have to pass, such as like the border and many other things. My final outcome was the website, which I have the link there. And I felt like I did meet my goal of making a website that talks about immigrant struggles, and hopefully it helped. Thank you. Bye.
Hi guys, my name is Annie Lynn Toledo Enchano. I'm a sophomore at Worcester High School and I'm going into the IB program. For my IB project, I decided that I would create a video about the topic of mental health. I think that mental health is a very serious issue, but I don't think there's much awareness for it as much as it should have, which is why I wanted to do this, was to hopefully create awareness and inform other people about the situation. I think that with also mental health, it affects other people and just students like us, especially because that is where it is most common, which is why I wanted to create this, because I feel like it could relate to other students and hopefully help others out. Now, when creating your IB project, there are 4 stages: investigating, planning, taking action, and reflecting. Of course, we start off with investigating. Now, during this stage, I think it was probably the most difficult for me because I had trouble actually getting to the topic of mental health. If anything, all the topics I had were nothing close to that in the beginning. I had places I wanted to travel to and foods I wanted to try and jobs I wanted. It was all over the place. And then it was also having some serious issues like starvation in Yemen and advocating rights for different races. But in the end, I made the last minute decision, which I know sounds bad, but I realized it was something I really wanted to talk about because, again, like I said before, it's not something that's discussed as it should be, and with that, of course, mental health is very dangerous to many people, and so to create awareness for that, I think and I hope that it would help others as well. The next stage was the planning stage. For this, it was quite difficult, but at least I got through it, and that's the most important part. Now, for this, I started by creating a timeline of certain things I wanted to do that I think would help me accomplish my goal. I made sure that I would spend enough time on those certain things so that I would feel prepared and ready to go to create my project. I started out by thinking of people that I could interview for this, of course. I wanted legit people that I could get facts from, and also opinions, because I think that also matters on how you see different perspectives of mental health, since it's such a wide and vast topic. So I thought about emailing some students, some organizations in state and in the country as well at a national level. I also learned how to use a camera and how to make a video and do editing, all that kinds of stuff, just because I was not experienced with that as well. And of course, that is something I wanted to learn for this project. The next stage is the taking action stage. So this is where you start creating your project, and all the hard work that you've put in is now coming into play for this. This is where I began to email the people and organizations that I wanted to have in my video. What was surprising though was that although I knew I was going to get denied by many places, I didn't realize how many places I was actually going to get denied by, which caused a little bit of a mishap again just because I wasn't expecting that. So I had to do some more research and find some more places that could hopefully be in my video, but thankfully that all worked out. I was able to create the video, have amazing information from amazing people from different organizations, and get opinions from students about, what they thought about mental health and their education and how that also affects their mental health as well. The last stage was a reflecting stage. You pretty much write a long essay about your whole process of creating your project, and you'll realize many of the mistakes that you made and how you could improve on them. I definitely realized my mistakes. I realized, things that I weren't prepared for and things that I didn't expect, which hopefully will help me out in the future and I won't make those same mistakes again. Throughout this process, I became more open-minded and I learned more about the causes of mental health. We know that the causes of mental health are very wide, but we didn't realize how vast the causes are. There's many that can come from abuse and also many that can come from the lack of self-confidence. So it's all these issues that lead on to more severe issues, just like mental health disorders, which are very dangerous. Here is my poster that names some disorders and also gives some hotlines that you or someone else you know who is in need of help can use. Although there is not that many named here, I hope that this video in general is able to help you and others become more aware of the situation of mental health and how serious it is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bea,
My name is Desiree.
and this is our personal project on Mexican culture. So the first one that we have is the Three Kings, which is celebrated on January 6th. It's where children wake up in the morning of January 6th and would run to open the gifts that the Three Kings would leave at the Christmas tree or near a representation of the Nativity. On the 5th, their majesties would leave the gifts for the children while they were asleep so that on the 6th they would celebrate a special day where the tradition Rosca de Reyes is tributed. Rosca de Reyes has Los Niños de la Rosca, and if you cut the bread and find the little boy, you can throw a big party and celebrate with your family and make tamales the following year on the day of La Calendaria on January 6th.
Cinco de Mayo is on May 5th, and it is when the Mexican army had a victory over France at the Battle of Puebla in 1862. As a celebration, we have parades, food, music, and dance. Also, get dressed up and just have fun. As you can see in the pictures, they're having fun and they're dancing.
Next one we have is Dia de los Muertos. It's an origin in Aztec traditions honoring the dead. Originated in Mexico and Central America. Celebrates life, not death. Marigolds are the main flower associated with Dia de los Muertos. They have sugar skulls which represent the departed souls with the name written on the forehead and placed on the home ofrenda. The purpose of the ofrenda for the souls of the deceased to come back. It is celebrated for 2 days but starts November 1st.
The yucca is a Mexican state plant. Yucca plants are edible. They are a species of Joshua cheese. They conserve water and they're grown in all different climates.
Labor Day is May 1st. Labor Day is a day where people have parades holding banners to promote workers. It is a day to rest. Most jobs and schools are closed to celebrate. It is a day to spend time with friends and family to have fun. It was officially made a holiday on May 1st, 1923.
Famous Mexican artists are like Frida Kahlo. She was famous for self-portraits. Diego Rivera was famous for lifelike and vibrant paintings. Rufino Tamayo, large murals and vivid color use. Cordelia Utiera, abstract and non-objective paintings. Dr. A.T.L. for landscapes.
Baile folclórico. Emilia Hernandez created the famous Ballet Folklorico. This type of dance reflects on traditions, cultures, and beliefs of people in a particular region. The women wear big dresses called the Jalisco. The dance expresses the life and spirit of people throughout its movement and music.
Scary Mexican folk tales. La Llorona, the crying woman. A woman named Maria drowns her children in a river after her husband commits adultery. After she kills herself in the same river, trapped between living and dead, she can be heard at night weeping and crying out for her children. Some believe if you hear her cries, it's an omen that death is coming to your household. Others believe she kidnaps children who resemble her own, El Cuckoo, boogeyman, a monster who hides in kids' closets and under their beds. Cuckoo likes to feed on disobedient children, but he also wanders the streets looking for kids to kidnap.
So along with the PowerPoint, we also made clay pots and paintings, but we don't have them with us, so we have them on another document. But we do have one of the paintings. It's just representing the Mexican flag.
And there's the other pot and the 2 paintings that we made.
Yeah, one of them is the yucca flower, which is the state flower from Mexico, and then the Dia de los Muertos sugar skull.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's
Bye.
from the 60s went from 4 out of 10 people. From 80s it went from 6 out of 10. From the 90s it went from stayed at 6 out of 10. But then from the 2000s and 10s and up, it shot rocketed to 10 out of 10 people. And that's how I wanted to people to realize how people are forgetting what the past of basketball was. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darcy, and for my MYP project, I wanted to learn how to draw more realistically. Personally, my art style was really different from realism, so I thought this would be a good way for me to try something new and get out of my comfort zone. For my project, there was no strict plan I followed, other than dates I would set for when I should finish certain things. When actually getting started on my project, I found that I rushed through a lot of my practice attempts and that I wouldn't be satisfied with the final product. So when I actually started on my final piece, I made sure to take my time and do things slowly. Overall, my project wasn't as realistic as I wanted it to be, but I think I did a pretty good job for only using this medium for a few weeks. Throughout this process, I learned that expanding to different mediums isn't as difficult as I thought it would be, and that expanding to different mediums only gives me more ways to express myself. For people who do want to get into realism, I recommend using a smooth surface paper as well as using Q-tips and tissues to blend. I also recommend not wasting your money on certain art supplies because I found that the pencils you use don't make a difference and they all work the same. I hope this video was able to help you get more into realism and understand it a bit more.
Hi, my name's David Solcio, and my seminar project was on Rocket League. Rocket League is a vehicular soccer video game developed and published by Fisonic. Described as soccer, but with like rocket-powered cars. Rocket League involves two teams that use rocket-powered vehicles to hit the ball into the opponent's goal and score, to get points over the course of the match. The game includes single and multiplayer modes, and cross-platforms for all consoles and PCs. How does Rocket League work? Players control a rocket-powered car and uses it to hit the ball that is much larger than the cars towards much larger than the cars and to hit it towards the other goal to score points. Rocket League resembles soccer with the elements of a demolition derby. My goal in this project was to learn 2 skill moves to help me get better at Rocket League and have a competitive advantage over my opponents I played during the game. What skills did I learn? One of the skill tricks was called dribbling, and dribbling is when you basically just like keep the car close to you, like in real soccer, it's like to one point to another without like it getting taken away, and like that was like one of the hardest things to do because like the hitboxes on the car are like really small and you have to hit it just right to get it where you want it to go. And then my second goal in the game was to get good at something called aerial hits, and that's when you like when the ball's like up in the air, you have to like fly towards it and like make sure it goes. So like when you learn that, it's easier to get more control and possession over the ball because your teammates well, your opposing team can't like steal it from you and stuff like that. And then for investigating, I had to research all the tricks that wanted to perform, and I did that by just using YouTube. For planning, I followed the steps in the packet that outlined, and then like I just like put it into the calendar and what I had to do and when I had to get it done. For acting, I practiced all the skill moves until I got them down and I was able to just perform them when I wanted in the game. And then reflecting on, as I look back on my project, I see that I did a good job of learning the two skill moves that I wanted to learn, and that learning those two moves, I also got advanced in more stuff that I wanted to learn as well. And then the next few slides are gonna be like videos of what I did. So here's the first one. So like that, I kept it on my car so like they can get to it. So like that's kind of hard because it's hard to keep it right in front of you all the time. And then here's the second one. It's always good to go back during the game because like so you always have a defense and that's how I was able to hit it back. And this is one like my craziest tricks I've ever done with dribbling and aerial hits at the same time. And then here's my last clip. Aerial hits are also good for backflipping because that is like jukes out your opponent basically. And then the ball goes flying up into the air, and then I just like land straight down onto it, and that's like the aerial hit in like its full form. And yeah, that was my project.
Hi, my name is Diego, and my project was about teaching my friend the basics of soccer. I decided to do a project like this and teach him because I saw how he wasn't good enough, and I want him to get better. And in my poster, I talked about the attempts it took him, and you can see how he was improving each time. And also, like, I summarized my project and I just summarized how teaching somebody I can also learn stuff myself. And we had a good time. And this happened around like September, December. And it was a good time. And my goal was to teach them the basics of soccer. And I was planning this for a while, but we couldn't really do it. And my reflection is that I could learn other things and new things while trying to teach my friend. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Gross. I'm Emma Kennedy. I don't think we have met before, and I'm not the best at presentations, so please bear with me while I struggle through this. So for my MYP project, I decided to do a research project, and my topic was global warming and how global warming affected the human population, our air quality, how it affected our ecosystems, our food supplies, how it affected animals, and just Earth in general. So for investigating, I really tried to research and figure out how long we had before global warming became quote unquote irreversible, how global warming affects like our water, our air quality, how it affects animals, how it affects our food supply. I really just did a lot of research to figure out like what was the big effect and how long we had. So for planning, I made a bunch of lists. I'm quite a lot of lists. I sectioned off and for how it affected our food supply, how it affected just humans, how it affected Earth, how it affected animals, and I did a deep research on each one to figure out how everything was affected. For taking action, I figured out what I could do and just what people could do as a whole to help slow down the process of global warming in our everyday lives. So reflecting on global warming, I realized what I was doing every day that was affecting global warming, that it was let's say instead of carrying and putting my plastic into the recycle bin, I put it in the trash, just things like that was contributing to global warming in my everyday life. So what I learned for this whole project was what I was doing that was affecting global warming, like making it come faster, and simple things I could do and others could do as a whole to help slow down the process. Like instead of using plastic bags, use paper bags at the grocery store, or instead of using those plastic produce bags, bring your own reusable ones that you can buy at the store. So my final outcome for this research project was educating myself and others. And so not only did I educate myself on what global warming was on a larger scale, I also educated others like my family, because during this project I asked others for their help, to let me bounce ideas off of them and tell them what they could do to help. And I met my goal by learning. My main goal was to educate myself more and try and educate others. And I think
Hi, my name is Isabel Lopez, and for my personal project, I recorded a video of myself using ASL to describe and talk about water pollution and the specific type of marine life it was hurting. Investigating, I had a few ideas in my mind about what I wanted to do, but for sure I knew that I really wanted to use ASL as it was really fun for me in middle school since I took it both 7th and 8th grade. When I figured out what I wanted to do, I had looked at a bunch of websites, specifically National Geographic, to get more into depth about what specific animals it was hurting, are areas being affected more by water pollution and which ones are being less affected by it, and so on. For planning, I knew that I needed to use my phone for recording and that I needed a good app to add in translation or closed captioning for the video. Taking action, I knew that I needed to have good lighting and to make sure that the words on my closed captioning were clear enough for people to read and understand while I was signing. I had looked back at the video after I was done recording the pieces and made sure that all my ASL signs were correct, that my captionings were okay, that I had cut out parts that I didn't need, and make sure I had parts in that were crucial. I had learned new facts about marine life and new ASL signs that I did not learn in the years I took ASL, which I found extremely interesting as some of the signs were really fun to do, such as seahorse. I had met my goal on this project by using up any free time that I had to look into different websites, to get more facts, to make sure that I remembered my ASL signs, and to cut and edit any parts that I did not need or parts that I really did need. I think learning ASL is extremely interesting and fun, and that you should definitely look into it if you're interested in learning a new language.
Hi, my name is Jefferson, and for my MYP project, I decided to create a mobile game. I decided to partner up with my friend Anish Bai, and we decided to construct a mobile game from scratch with no previous knowledge of code. So while investigating our goal, we wanted to create something big. We started thinking big and things we would like to do in the future. We both were interested in coding, and so we decided to work off of that. We decided to create a mobile game from scratch, knowing nothing. So first we started investigating, and we learned that the best way to do it was using C# as a language, as a coding language. And we would also use Unity engines because it is a free and very accessible engine. So that was part of the investigating process. We wanted to find out how we were going to do it, if we could do it, and like I said, if it was even possible for 2 high school students to create a mobile game in 2 months. So for our planning, what we basically did was we drew out our game on a sheet of paper and then proceeded to try and translate it onto the screen. That's what we did during the taking action process. During the taking action, we worked hours upon hours coding and coding, graphic designing, and animating our game to look as complete as possible. And reflecting, we would do everything different. We decided that if we had to do this project again, we would do everything completely different, but it doesn't take away from what we did. So what we learned through the process, we learned many things. For example, we learned how to time manage, we learned how to code, we learned how to design, and we learned how to use Unity engines. And our final outcome is, as you can see right here, our game. This is a Unity engine, and our game is right there in the center. Although we said our game was a mobile game, it can be played on a computer as well, since this is a touchscreen computer. It is designed for mobile platforms, but we have yet to publish it. So as you can see right here, you play as the single character named Armando, and what you need to do is you need to shoot these robot spikes with the blue button to try and kill them all. They come in waves of 4. They come in 20 waves in total, and you must complete all 20 waves in order to beat the game. Here's your score right here, and as you can see, we just died. Your health is right here, your ammo, or your energy as we call it since it is a laser gun, is right here, and your rocket shoes are right here. So here's the main menu. For now, we just have the play button. And then you have to hold it up to fly from left and right. This game is a very difficult game. We took inspiration from another game called Trap Dungeon, which is a super impossible game, and the goal of it is to try and beat it due to it being impossible. And so our goal was to publish this game on the Google Play Store. We tried to publish it on the Apple Store, but it cost $100 a year, and it's a one-time fee for $25 for Google Play. So we decided to go to Google Play, but the thing is, due to the little time we had, we didn't manage to publish it. But it doesn't mean we're going to give up. We still have goals of publishing it. We still continue to work on it to make it as complete as possible, and this time we don't have any rush. And we're also trying to add ads to it so we can make a little bit of money off of it too as well. And so what we learned, or anything else that is interesting to know, is it was a really challenging MYP project. I mean, like, if we had to do this again, we would probably choose someone else as well instead of just doing it in a pair. And I mean, it was a really struggle. Like, it was mentally draining. Like, although coding isn't physically demanding, it's mentally demanding a lot. And so you're going to need a lot of energy and willpower to get through the little mistakes. Like, for example, we'd be up late at night for hours trying to solve one little tiny problem. But in the end, the payoff was way more than all the struggle. So yeah, thank you.
My name is Julian Logan, and for my project, I did the struggles of homelessness. My goal for this project was to inform people about the problem of homelessness. This slide right here is talking about how many people are homeless around the world, and just the overall problem of it. It says here that 1.6 billion people are homeless or close to it. 1,256 people are homeless in Reno. 552,830 people are homeless in the U.S., with 151,278 of those people in California. As you can see, homelessness is a big problem all around the world. 2% of the world is homeless, and 20% of the world lacks adequate housing. Now, that may not be a lot, considering it's only 22%, but account for like the 22% being 1.6 billion people. And that is very significant and a big problem in our world. Our population is currently almost 8 billion now. And this picture is showing like how we're helping the homeless by feeding them. Right here, the slide continues on about the information, and the population here has grown about 1.5 billion since 2006, which is a lot of people in a short period of time. This has a big effect on our resources, and it is going to change the way we live. One great example is the amount of homeless people around the world. The poverty line is getting lower because the things we need the most are getting more and more expensive. 102 years ago, population was not even 2 billion, and if you put that into how long humans have been here, that is only a fraction of time. That's an increase of 6 billion people in 100 years. The population at this rate should be almost 16 billion in the next 100 years, which will obviously be a whole lot of people for one planet. At that point, or even before that point, resources will have to be stretched to the max to feed the bare minimum of people. This is also a continuation of the first slide, giving more information on food and how a shortage of food can affect farming, and how a growth of people can affect farming. Farming and making a lot of natural food will have to be a priority. If not, even today, people will starve. As of 2020, on average, 805 million people a day starve because there is a food shortage in that area. How we can solve that is not by eliminating the population, but by growing mass amounts of food and get the max amount of resources out of this planet. Another solution is moving to other planets in the far future, like a good example would be Mars. Mars is expected to see its first inhabitants in 2023. The journey will take 3/4 of a year. This right here, this picture, it shows population growth in the areas, and it's mostly centered around Africa and China and stuff. This is talking more about resources. Essential things like coal, oil, natural gas, and even fresh water are being used and consumed day by day by 7.8 billion people. It is only a matter of time before we run out of these resources. Scientists estimate by the year 2050, there will start to be a shortage of natural resources like food and water. The worst one being fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are expected to run out in 53 years. Renewable energy could also be a problem because it could be used faster than it could be produced, which is a big problem with renewable energy. That may sound like it is very far in the future, but in real life, in time, it is just a snap of the fingers. Sadly, these things are happening right before our eyes. This is a picture of kids in Africa that don't eat, and it is very sad to see because there's not much we can do about it. Here are some things we can do to help. People all over the world are trying to decrease the homeless population as much as possible. For example, there are many homeless shelters here in the U.S. to house and feed those who are in need. There are different programs such as this one program who builds or sets up homeless people in little shacks or houses that are just like regular houses and have electricity and light and heat, while other organizations will have presents donated on Christmas or a feast held at a community service for that homeless so that they can feel what it's like on Christmas or any other holiday like a normal person. Sometimes it's not even any organizations that take care of the homeless. Sometimes it could be regular people. For example, a famous YouTuber by the name of Mr. Beast gave a homeless person a free house. He also gave a homeless man $100,000. Overall, he is one of the most generous people on the planet, and he makes people very happy as a result. Lots of people from the public avoid homeless people because they think that they're all drug addicts or have been in and out of prison. For some, though, it is not the case. They could be veteran. If you want to click on this video and watch it, I don't know, people who haven't seen it, I'll be very surprised. They have a lot of views. And then this continuation right here. Other people may do protesting for homelessness or protest certain laws that make certain people homeless. For example, this one student named Gordon Wayne from Boston College walked 550 miles to his campus from his home. He made this journey because he wanted to show people the significance of being homeless. To do this, he wore a backpack with a sign on it saying, "End homelessness." And because he took that walk, he made a lot of people realize that homelessness is a big problem across multiple states. For a whole year, he was also homeless in a freshman year of college, so he knew what it felt like and how unhealthy it was for a human being. He had minor injuries after the walk, but the walk also showed his dedication towards the problem and how serious it is in the U.S. After his walk, he wants to finish college and start to help the homeless in Boston. Here's him right here. It's basically a documentary of how he completed that journey. This next section is about homeless youth. Believe it or not, homelessness also affects children as well. Over 2.5 million children are homeless in America. That means, according to the National Center on Family Homelessness, that 1 in every 30 children are homeless in the U.S. 700,000 of these kids are unaccompanied minors, which means they are all by themselves in this world with nothing to eat and nowhere to live. The numbers just keep growing with 4.2 million homeless kids alone. 660,000 of these children are under 13 with no parents. To help fight the homelessness that takes over a lot of children's lives, people have made companies and food banks to help feed the hungry. For example, the Hope for Children Foundation helps feed the hungry and houses kids that have no parents or homeless. Another obvious place that children are taken care of is orphanages in the United States. This slide is talking about how homelessness affects the elderly. It is very dangerous for the elderly because they need care, kind of like a young child. Like, say someone's in their late 80s or even 90s and they're homeless. If they need medicine or treatment, that could cause death if you're homeless. Down here in the last one, it says the aging homeless population experiences high rates of diabetes and hypertension. Age also puts people at further risk for complications from COVID-19. Many homeless individuals have difficulty with self-care and keeping up with hygiene, which can cause infection due to stress and social isolation. The experience of homelessness may also exacerbate mental health conditions. Sadly, homeless seniors in urban centers have disproportionately high rates of premature death. Elderly people who are homeless will likely present increasing challenges for behavioral health and medical systems. This comes to the end of my project. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys learned something from this. Thank you.
Okay, hello, my name is Katrina, and my personal project is about bleaching my hair by myself. And why I decided to do this is because I think it's like a self-expression, and also because I just wanted to try new things. So, and how I did it is that it required a lot of researching, and from what I learned, like, it take a lot of patience to do it and like just trust the process. And so yeah, that's what I did. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kayla, and for my personal project I've built a miniature library where people can go and swap books for free. So how it works is I've built the library and provided about 20 books to put in it, and they're just general books, and you can go with a book of your choosing from your own house and swap it with a book that's in the library for free, so then you can continue to read different books from different people. And I've put it in a small town called Floriston. It's in California, just across the border. And I've done this because I think as a generation we've lost most of our touch to reading, and reading was a really big part of my life. And I think reading should be a really big part of everyone's life. You know, reading brings people together, reading introduces you to new skills, new hobbies, new passions in life. And the fact that we've given up reading for social media is a big divide, and just a small part of what I could do to try to bring reading back into small kids' lives and to even adults' lives at this point was to make this book shelf. So it was a hard process making the shelf. We had to start getting all the materials, which actually, saying that you're doing a project for the community brought the community together, in my opinion, because most of the stuff I got donated to me. I got free plexiglass from a plexiglass company to make the front. I got free roofing from people around the neighborhood. I got free wood. I mean, it was insane the reaction I got when I said that I was doing this project and how many people wanted to step up and help me. So honestly, I didn't really spend that much money. I just bought paint, and I think that's the only thing I spent money on. But it did take a lot of time. It took a lot of precision work and cutting and doing stuff over and over to make sure I was doing it right. And I think it was all worth it because when I installed it, it was winter, but luckily everyone came out in their winter coats and we got to see kids swapping out books. And like I said, we really need these kids in this day and age to come and start reading, because that's, you know, something that we're missing out on. And I think as a kid, I've missed out on lots of reading opportunities myself. Instead of picking up a book, I'll go watch Netflix. Instead of picking up a book, I'll go scroll on TikTok. So I really think that this project is just something small I could do to help bring in reading, and I hope that people continue to do this, make more and more book swaps, more and more miniature libraries, and I hope it really helps everyone. Thank you.
Hello, and this is a project of my research of being a graphic designer. So I wanted a goal that I could start and finish and accomplish. So here's some things I needed to investigate. The first one is to know what type of group your brand would be. Second is making a budget. Buying items that are not expensive. For example, I have the website that would help me for my t-shirts, cheap and with made good quality. Pricing the products and also making the product look like it was made in an effort. Making your brand more successful with these type of examples. Planning. Evaluating the product to know if it's a worthy purchase. Also, it helps you to have an open opportunity to become a bigger business. Taking action. Now this is where all your progress is officially being put in the process of your shirts. And making sure everything is going good and also keeping up with customer service. Reflecting. Why is reflecting important? It's where you look on the past and look how much you have learned from now than before. But then you tend to grow by your actions when you make your business as well as it grows. Now here's some things I reflected on the past on the right side. What I've learned through the process. What I've learned is that it's hard to start a business by yourself and by scratch. Also, that this type of business for you to grow is intend to be hard for you to grow, but it gets there eventually. But also eventually it gets easier along the way. The final outcome of my product. The final outcome of my product is the 2 sketches on the right, and it's what I would put on the shirts to become my first product. It's in the front side, centered, and also knowing that these 2 will be the first 2 from my start and example for my designs. Did I meet my goal? I would say yes, because I didn't know what to research, and by now I know more than I did before. Already having a sketch for my shirts and also knowing the issues if there ever comes one for the business. And lastly, things to know. First, your store won't get noticed that fast, but also try making people notice your store by any needs, social medias, or anything. Don't delay on clothes. It can hurt your business. And also, your service will say a lot about your company as well.
Hi, my name is King Kubuya, and I will be doing my presentation interview. So the first question was, what was I investing? And I was investing in drawing because all the time I like drawing. And the four stages that I was doing, the first one was investigating. So when I was investigating, I had to pick one thing that I liked, and so which was drawing, but what type of drawing, which was house drawings. And then on my planning, I had to plan how I was going to do this by making specific details on how I was going to make everything get together in a perfect way I wanted it to be. And for example, drawing a window was one of the most detailed things I did. And also make sure that there's a backyard on the house. And also on the taking action part, I had to show what I was planning by drawing. For example, I have here a house, and after that I had to reflect, making sure I had all my my reflection paragraphs and daily ones. What I learned in the process was how to really draw as an artist and how to think like an artist and how artists do it, and which was really inspiring to me. And my final outcome, well, these drawings were it because they showed me how to draw simple drawing and also making it simple, not too hard for these ones. How I met my goal, it was long time ago. When I was a kid, I used to draw on papers all the time, and I was influenced by it and I liked doing it. That's when I really started drawing and getting the craft done professionally. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew Gavrilis, and for my personal project, I decided to create an original album of music. So for my goal, it was to create the album and to collaborate with other musicians. Collaborating was something that I struggled with before in different projects and certain things like that. We had to work on mastering and mixing the tracks together to make it a cohesive album with the generalized aesthetic, and also I produced artwork for it as well. So to go through the process of the project, I started with investigating, and I used interviews from artists and producers to kind of gather a general idea of how to go forwards in making the album. I looked at different articles from different sources for production and recording and writing, so I could kind of figure out a process of outlining how I would write things. This is an example. I looked to a different band that I liked, and I used a set of guidelines like song structure and chord changes and different just melody ideas, and I kind of compiled that into just a set of guidelines and structures for writing my own music. Then I went into the planning stage, which would be communicating with my other bandmates and kind of working around networking, figuring out a way to make it actually possible. We gathered equipment and made a timeline and criteria for which we would grade and evaluate our project. The third stage was taking action, which we started writing the songs and recording demos that we would later refine and use for the actual project part. This is an example of a song that I wrote on my own using actually the structure from the song analysis I did before. I set forward with, I had some lyric ideas, some chords, and just a general idea, and that's how we set to write the songs. So we did a total of 6 tracks, 2 of which were demos, which ended up on the actual project. I did some artwork for the project that ended up on the platforms that we released it to. We have some demo notes that I actually used during the actual recording process, in which we had a big long recording of all the demos, and I made notes for it, for which ones we can improve on and further record. So at the end of the project, we looked back and we reflected on the final product, and we kind of figured out, you know, it's a pretty difficult process. There's a lot of different parts that go into it, and everyone kind of had a different idea for what it would end up as. But in total, we gained valuable skills in the process, and we learned a lot about producing and writing music. We learned to better collaborate with each other as musicians and as peers. And overall, it was a lot of fun. So I think it was pretty good. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Monserrat Ramirez, and for my personal project, I decided to start a small shoe customizing business. The reason I wanted to do this is because I wanted to see how it is to start a business, because not many people know how much work and struggle that people go through. For this project, I had a short-term and long-term goal. My long-term goal was to keep the business going, and my short-term goal was to get at least a few customers in. In order to do this, I first interviewed a couple of people who already started their business, and I tried to figure out how they would charge things and how they would arrange all their prices and what materials they would use. And after getting all that information, I then started figuring out what I could use from my budget, because it didn't start off very big. And then after that, I decided to start an Instagram business where I would post the shoes I would work on. And then I had a few of my friends help share my account in order to spread the word that I'm trying to start this small business. I had to buy the supplies myself, and I had a few friends who volunteered to let me use their shoes as examples for people to see what I'm capable of doing. And after the project started going on, I did get a few customers. I reached my short-term goal, and so far the business is still going. What I did learn from this project is that, yeah, it takes a lot of time management and figuring out how you're supposed to figure out when you're able to do shoes, because as a teenager still in school, handling a small business and going to school is a lot of work. So this really did help me with my time management skills. And the reason I did this was because I just wanted to see how being in a business works and how much stress it can involve, because most of us think that things are really easy to do because it's just making the product and selling it, but it takes a lot more work and time in order to make things be very successful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Riley Pilkington. I'm in Mr. Swaggart's AP seminar class, and this is my MYP virtual exhibition. Before starting my project, I had to investigate. I wanted to pick something that I felt was appropriately challenging for me, so I learned a new skill. I wanted a creative outlet that could benefit me mentally, so I chose to learn how to knit. I consider myself to be a creative person who oftentimes gets stressed out or anxious easily. In posing my research topic, I decided to answer the question of what is the nature and purpose of creative expression, and use the personal and cultural expression as my global context. This led me to research the health benefits of knitting. When investigating my area of research, I wanted to research both the health benefits of knitting and how to actually knit. This way, I can see if the research on the benefits of knitting correlate with my personal experience with knitting. Planning is when I began to prepare for learning how to knit. I learned what tools I needed to complete my goal, projects that are suitable for beginners, and different stitches used while knitting. For a beginner's project, I knitted a scarf. Afterwards, I learned how to knit stitches inspired by a cardigan sweater that Harry Styles modeled. In total, I learned how to complete 6 different types of stitches. Once I had my projects all planned out, I went to Michael's to purchase the necessary materials. First, I did practice squares before I started my scarf. Then I knitted my scarf. Lastly, I learned 5 new stitches on the Harry Styles inspired cardigan, separate from the first stitch that I learned on the scarf. So in total, I learned 6 new stitches. After learning how to knit, I was able to say for certain that it did benefit me in terms of mental health. Oftentimes, when I felt stressed or panicked, I would listen to music or watch a movie and knit, and it would help me calm myself. My research did, in fact, directly correlate with my own personal experience. Through this process, I learned not only how to knit, but the psychological benefits of knitting in terms of stress and anxiety reduction. I also learned that knitting does help myself when I feel stressed or anxious. Here are the stitches I learned for the sweater, and here's the scarf. On the scarf, I learned the basic garter stitch. On the sweater, I learned how to complete the moss stitch, the double moss stitch, the reverse B stitch, the jersey slip stitch, and the jacquard stitch, which is the one where I used 2 different colors in the same panel. They are nowhere near perfect, but I am proud of myself considering that I am a beginner. I met my goal by researching how to knit and the benefits of knitting, finding the motivation to learn how to knit, and carving out time to complete the project. Here is a link to access my research report and my journals. Thank you for watching.